Welcome to the Procrastination-Proof Podcast. This podcast is for parents and entrepreneurs, for you listening here to understand that anything is possible for you. Now, that may seem like a really corny intro, and I know that, but it'll get better as the podcast grows. All right, I am Coach Turby, founder of the Turbo Turby Academy, host of the Procrastination Proof Podcast, and I'm happy to be here today with you to share with you some things, some tricks. I don't want to say tricks. I'm happy to be here with you to share some tips on dealing with anxiety. Now, anxiety is a very important topic because everybody experiences this. And it's all about how we frame things, right? I actually did a training on this the other day to my students, and I have this little drawing there up on the board, but if you're listening, obviously you can't see it. So I will explain it in a little bit, right? But first, I want to talk about what is anxiety. Anxiety is the physical representation of fear in our body, right? Anxiety represents itself as fear in the human body. So we have to ask the question now, what is fear? Well, fear is a physical reaction to a near and present danger. So thousands of years ago, human beings were on this planet just doing our thing, right? And somebody saw a lion. Now, when they saw the lion ate them. And somebody else was there, and immediately, what did they feel? They felt danger. Their heart rate started pumping. Their hands got sweaty, right? A whole bunch of other things that happen when we feel fear. That moment, right, is important because fear happens physically. And our brain doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined thought, something vividly imagined that only happens in our mind, and a physical experience. So, that being said, running into a tiger or a lion in the wild will create the same physical experience in the human, whether we vividly imagine it happening to us or we're actually there running into the danger in the wild, right? Having to jump off of somewhere, maybe like a mountain or a skyscraper. That is some scary stuff, right? If you've never done it before, I understand there's people that love doing that, and kudos to you. But there's other things that you're scared of, right? When I think about my kids driving someday, that scares me, and I feel anxiety, but I call it fear, right? So there's that distinction that we need to make and be very clear of, because anxiety is not fear, but we call them the same thing, and we feel them the same way, right? The way we feel anxiety is the same way we feel fear. So now we can say, I'm scared to make this phone call, even though the phone call is going to be helpful for us. But I'm scared. We're not really scared. We have anxiety towards making the phone call because we created a future experience that hasn't happened yet, and it's something that we don't like. If I wake up today and say, today is going to be hard, I'm going to have a bad day because of X, Y, Z. That's something that I made up. I completely made it up. I could have woke up and said, today I'm going to have an amazing day. Today's going to be a great day. Guess what? I made that up too, right? So the difference between those two is what happens physically in our body when we say those things, when we think those things. If I expect today to be a bad day, then I'm going to feel anxiety. If I expect today to be a great day, I'm going to feel anxious, right? I'm going to feel excited. I can't wait to get the day started. I can't wait to go and do these things that are going to be great for me. It's a feeling that is different from anxiety, because anxiety will cause us to feel powerless, right? It'll cause us to feel like we don't want to do the thing, even though we know the thing is going to be good for us, whatever it is. Whether it's reading, whether it's exercising, whether it's eating healthy, whether it's journaling, whether it's teaching, whether it's being a parent, whether it's being any type of profession, right? I find that humans experience anxiety. We get imposter syndrome, which is what? Anxiety about the future, right? Oh, what if these people don't like me? What if I'm not good enough? What if this? What if that? What ifs are made up. Anything that comes after that is made up. So if I'm going to make it up, I can decide to make up something good, or I can decide to make up something negative, right? So, anxiety affects us because once we feel it, then we no longer have the energy to do the thing that we're supposed to do. That's going to benefit us in the long term, right? So, for those of you listening, to explain, I basically just explained this drawing, right? So when we look at an event, what happens is we immediately put a frame around it, right? We either say this is something negative or this is something positive. And we believe that it is something negative or positive. So we either have doubt in ourselves, or we either have faith in ourselves. If I have a bad day at work, or say, our business is bad one day, am I going to believe that that's a bad thing, or am I going to believe that that's a good thing? It's all about how I frame it, right? If I fall and, hurt my foot or hurt my knee or something, which has happened, right? I'm getting older. Am I going to see it as a negative thing, or am I going to see it as a positive thing? Am I going to say, man, now this is a great time to, rest and connect with my family and do something else? Or I could see it as a bad thing and like think about, oh, it's going to be so hard to get around, and I'm going to have to do this and I'm going to have to do that, right? So it's all about how we frame things. And the way we frame things is going to determine what? How we feel, right? That thought, that belief in our head is going to translate to a feeling. And once we feel it, then it's going to either give us power or paralysis, right? If we feel anxiety, most likely we will get paralysis. If we feel anticipation, we will get power, right? We'll get energy. We will get fortified with the positive vibrations, the positive energy of achieving the thing that we desire to achieve. That feeling of having it already is going to empower us, rather than making up a story that says, oh, we don't get it. And then we feel like crap, right? We feel stressed. We feel, we get worried. We get worn out. We start overthinking. All these negative effects that anxiety has and shows up. And it happens to us all the time, right? We're constantly having things happen. If I get a phone call, what does that mean? Anything that happens means something to us, right? So it's a constant, us as humans framing the events that happen to us. Now, I want to share with you what I do to get over it, because it's really powerful when you can stop yourself and say, okay, this is just me making this up. This is just me telling myself a story, right? So there's several ways that I do this. In the immediate, I ground myself by asking myself, not out loud. If I have to do it out loud, I'll do it out loud. But I ask myself, okay, what do I see? What's actually happening right now, right? And that question for me, it allows me to analyze everything that's going on, right? What do I hear right now? What do I see right now? What am I feeling with my hands? What am I feeling internally, right? How is my balance if I'm standing up, or even if I'm sitting down? What is actually happening? What is the situation that's going on? Am I in my car driving? Am I sitting in my office? Am I sitting on my couch? Am I sitting in an important meeting? Am I face to face with someone in an important meeting? What is actually happening, right? If I get scared of a future event, what's actually happening right now? Well, if I'm just sitting at my desk, or if I'm just thinking about it right now, then I don't need to feel physically any negative feelings towards that event, right? So understanding that, it's like, okay, that's what's happening right now. So what can I do about it? If I can take a positive action towards achieving that desired outcome that I want, if I can take a positive action right now, then I'll take the positive action immediately. If I cannot take a positive action, then I need to change my emotional state immediately. I need to change my posture. I need to smile. I need to feel happy. I need to feel positive feelings physically, immediately, so that I can start thinking differently. Because I know that if I start thinking negatively, the thoughts that are in my head are not going to be creative. They're not going to be productive. They're not going to be conducive to what I'm trying to accomplish. And even if what I'm trying to accomplish is just relax, if I'm just trying to relax, if I'm trying to meditate and I'm getting all these anxious thoughts, what's going on right now? Hey, I'm just sitting here. I'm just sitting here thinking. Okay, there's no need to feel that way. Let me think about something else. Let me think about something that makes me happy. What makes me happy? Right? What is the last time I felt excited? Let me start thinking about that, so that I can feel different internally, right? I actually created a handbook for eliminating common things like overthinking, which is what anxiety does to you. I just don't like the word anxiety. So overthinking, distraction, which we all experience, perfectionism, which a lot of us experience, burnout, which is really destructive, and lack of prioritization. If you want to get that, there's 26 tips in there. 26 tips in there with, some, and they're all actionable things that you can do. There's no like stories or fluff. It's literally straight to the point, the action items that you can do. So if you want to get that, it's go.turboturbyacademy.com/guides. Let's go.turbo, Turby is Turby, academy.com, no spaces, right? turboturbyacademy.com/guides. Go get that. It's absolutely free. And if you want the course, There's some bonuses that go along with it, and it's at a really, really cheap price right now. All right. So those that will give you some of the other things that I do to get rid of procrastination and overthinking and anxiety, but that was just one of them. So to change our physical state, to change our physiology is the most important thing, right? We always want to change our physiology first, because based on our bodies, we're going to feel a certain type of way. So making ourselves smile, making ourselves think of happy thoughts is always great. Now, for those of you listening, I want you to just, I'm going to give you another one, right? And my wife taught me this one. I think she saw it somewhere on social media. So you take your hand out. If you're driving, obviously, please don't do this. And because you need both hands. And each time you lift a finger, you laugh as many times as the finger. So one finger is one ha. 2 fingers is 2 ha's, right? Ha ha. 3 fingers is ha ha ha, and so on and so forth. And when you do that all the way to 10, by 10, you will either be laughing, like actually laughing for real, or you'll still feel different because you've practiced laughing. So even if you don't do it for real, you will actually experience it in your body, right? So I'm going to do this real quickly. Ha, 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 ha. See, I'm sorry for those of you who were actually counting, but I actually laughed because, and I knew I was going to do it. So that is so powerful for me. And now I feel good. Now I'm in a happy mood. And now I can think creatively. Now I can think positively. Now it's easier for me to think creatively and positively. And I can take an action that will help me accomplish whatever it is that I'm trying to accomplish. So I want you guys to get that, because there's so many things that we have access to as human beings that are free, right? Like what I just shared with you is free. If you're listening to this podcast, it is free. Download the episode, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the show. That helps me keep this free, right? And I encourage you to get the handbook, the Procrastination-Proof Handbook. Now, I've been able to teach this to so many people and help so many, like many people accomplish things just by having them focus on the positive outcome, right? A lot of times, as I said before, we frame things negatively. I remember when I first taught this to one of my students out in Jersey, shout out to Bella. She was moving and going through like a difficult time, and I'm not gonna give you all the details, but there was a lot going on, right? And she has her own business, and so anybody would, be stressed in that situation of moving and dealing with a relationship upgrade and having doubts and fears and the business and how that's doing, and applied pressure and all these things that we deal with as human beings, right? So the way she framed the conversation was causing her to feel a certain type of way. And so once she started to look at things differently, and it's like, oh, well, this is actually a great thing that this is happening, right? Because it's going to free up this, and that. This is actually great that's happening at this time, because now it's a full reset, right? And so that month she ended up increasing her business by like 30 to 50%. I forget what the actual numbers were. And, she moved, she fixed all the little other details that was going on. And it was great, all by shifting the perspective, right? Reframing the situation. So I hope that if you're listening to this, you can understand that, like, hey, anybody can do this. You can do this, right? You can just change how you view the situation by changing the vocabulary, changing the questions that you ask yourself around it. Put yourself in a physically good state and then ask yourself the question, right? So I hope that helps somebody today, and I want to thank you for listening to this and subscribing to the podcast and downloading this episode and showing your support and going to get the handbook. I appreciate you, and I cannot wait to drop another episode. So I'll see you next week, or you'll hear me next week on another episode of the Procrastination Proof Podcast. Y'all be blessed.